This has been an incredibly jam-packed week of news that I find relevant anyways. Let's start with Ferguson. The report from the Department of Justice comes out on Wednesday. It basically says that there is a systemic problem, not just with the Ferguson Police Department, but with the entire judicial system, the criminal, I don't know if I would even call it the criminal justice system. I mean, it seems to be like even the civil justice system.
The description of basically that entire town, to me, it's the sort of thing that, if the place is being run by someone like Bull Connor, frankly, it makes Bull Connor look like Nelson Mandela, is quite frankly what I mean. Have you seen something like that? I mean, those are the things that just people need to see. Because, I don't know how much, you said the report's coming out, but part of it, has been leaked and is out there.
It came out Wednesday, right.
Oh, came out Wednesday. I'm sorry. Then that's my mistake. Because I saw it already. I was like, hey, if it's not out, then how did I? Okay. So, and reading some of that, I mean, just, that description in very plain language, no BS, just straightforward about the different percentages. God, I should have had it in front of me. I don't know if you do.
Well,
that
I have
section.
Some. Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing about the different disparities and who's stopped and, who is there violent behavior used against who, versus who else and who they released the dogs on. I mean, it's just, well, go ahead.
Well, 67% of the population is African-American in Ferguson. They accounted for 85% of the Ferguson Police Department traffic stops, 90% of the Ferguson Police Department citations, and 93% of the Ferguson Police Department arrests. This is from 2012 to 2014. African Americans are 2.07 times more likely to be searched during a vehicular stop, but are 26% less likely to have contraband found on them during the search. African Americans have force used against them at a disproportionately high rates. African Americans more likely to receive multiple citations during a single incident. African Americans account for 95% of manner of walking charges. 94% of all failed
manner of walking.
Yes. African Americans are 68% less likely than others to have their cases dismissed by the municipal judge. I mean, it goes on like this. And here's the thing, too. I mean, and then they also have like some anecdotes of just how these numbers play out. One is about a guy who, after playing basketball, sat in his car to cool down, not stopped. He was already stopped, and ended up getting cited for a half a dozen things. And I think he was arrested because he was like, "What are you doing?" I'm just, he was arrested on 8 counts after just sitting in a car after playing basketball. They found nothing. It was they just wanted to, I guess, harass him or something. Then, of course, there was a revelation of all these racist emails. I mean,
the emails, right? The jokes about Obama to me, all that stuff is terrible. And I guess some of it that just pops out at me again is the manner of walking. Because the problem is that in these places that are just horrendously, where the culture is unbelievably racist and where it's just accepted that that's the way it is, when you have they all have things like that, right? Vagrancy or loitering, where essentially you can arrest anybody. And that is where all this stuff gets even more dangerous because people don't have to actually have done something wrong. And that is where, I mean, there's obviously when you read that report, there's abuse everywhere. But my gosh, that's the thing is you're putting so much power in these police departments' hands when you're giving them these ridiculous sort of, charges they can arrest people for, which I would think many of them wouldn't really pass constitutional muster if we ever actually cared to check on that. And I mean, that tells me even as much as everything else you're reading there that systematically it's just sort of, we got that charge on the books. So somebody black walks by, we don't like the way they look. They're walking in a strange manner. Take them in.
And then the problem also extends into the judicial system there, including like prosecutors and court officials, some judges. And here's the thing: is that I'm not convinced. Well, I mean, I think this is to state the obvious. One has to wonder how many Fergusons there are out there. I mean, not that whether or not there are more. I'm quite convinced there are hundreds.
Yeah, I think you actually have to. You can only wonder if there's hundreds or thousands of them.
Right.
Seriously.
And of course in Ferguson there is it just so happened that there was a conflation of events so that the Justice Department came in, but I'm not convinced that they couldn't write a report like this in literally tens, if not hundreds, of cities and towns across the country. And, you know, again, I mean, the rot is in the court system too.
It is, which I've talked about on your show before when I've done the stuff I've done with the Ohio Innocence Project, and you see the way the entire system creates this, you know, the situation with these three gentlemen that we got released from Cleveland, one of whom had been in prison for 39 years. And was arrested. I mean, that if there's not a better case to sort of explain exactly this kind of thing. And again, this is Cleveland, not Ferguson. I mean, we're not just talking sort of smaller or medium-sized cities. We're talking major cities, major urban centers. In this particular case, you know, somebody white is killed in an African-American neighborhood. It's a white police force. They're looking for somebody. They pressure a young African-American kid and by threatening him and saying they're going to arrest his parents and scaring the hell out of him to make up a story that he saw three men there who they want to arrest for this. And then they arrest those three men on this trumped-up information, and then these guys then the court system, of course, immediately assumes they're guilty and they're put away for the rest of their lives. And in effect, if the Ohio death penalty hadn't been declared unconstitutional for a period of time in the late 70s, all three of these men would have been put to death for something they didn't do. And you know, how run-of-the-mill is that? Well, I got to tell you, I've only been on the board of the Ohio Innocence Project for a year. We're about to release three more gentlemen who were found guilty of crimes they didn't commit. There have been others, and you just when you start seeing it here the way you do, when Ohio doesn't have even the history on the same way of the kind of racial animosity in some parts of the South. I mean, you know, I can just tell you, if you see this system, you see this sort of cavalier way in some judges treat this. You see the way that prosecutors try to protect, former prosecutors when it comes up that they didn't share information, they hid information, they destroyed it, and a variety of things. They work to protect their guilty verdict no matter the cost. And there have been one or two great exceptions to that, I will say, but mostly that has been the case. And the same with so you see it in all parts of this system. You see the system that's supposed to treat everybody equally, but some people get the best lawyers, and then somebody else gets a public defender who's massively overworked. Some people have, they don't understand the system. They have so much stuff thrown in their face, they plead guilty to something they didn't do just because they're so scared of what can happen. I mean, there's sort of number of unequal outcomes and unfair practices that can happen on any given day because of all of these factors that I don't think everybody always thinks about. It's been really eye-opening for me, and I thought, it's not like I didn't pay attention to this stuff before, but it's right in front of you. It lets you know how flawed our system is.
And the other element of this, on one hand, it's also the criminal, the abuses of the criminal system. And then there's also the abuses of the civil system. So they are using the police department as just as a collection agency, and of course I think also I don't want to say payday lenders because it's not, you don't even get any benefit out of it, but they're going out.
Well, it said that in the report straight out, didn't it? That they basically were using African Americans as their way of collecting money.
Yep. And that's on the civil side of things, and so you have just this massive. This is just, it's just so the corruption, and it's not not corruption in the form of bribery, but just the sort of the degradation of the system. It is
right of a fair, what is supposed to be a system, where justice is blind and where everybody gets a fair trial, and all these things we're taught when we're kids that we like to repeat. And it's sort of heartbreaking because you want to believe in all this stuff and you realize that basically that none of that's true. I mean, here on occasion it may be true. There are certainly situations. There are people who luckily who are poorer and are minorities, and end up getting free representation from people in a pro bono way who are the top, at least who are lawyers who can at least tell them what they need to do and at least advise them as the system's stacked against them, and sometimes get people off. But in most of these cases, you're just screwed, and if you didn't do anything, I mean, you're just as screwed. It doesn't really make a difference whether you did something or not. Once you're caught up in the system, good luck. You know, it's terrible.